Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started because we have folks that are going to join us on Facebook and
Sure.
a couple other places, so we can go ahead and get started. And can you see our faces and see us talking while we're on here?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Good. Well, we got a few participants. I know there'll be some jumping on, and we appreciate you guys being here. So, if you would like to learn more about rock solid moves and the pitfalls to avoid when buying a mountain house, you're in the right spot. So, whether you're watching on Facebook or watching us live on Zoom, that's what we're here to talk about. And of course, I can't resist when I'm talking about the mountains. I do like to wear my the mountains are calling t-shirt. So there you go. One of the sayings, what do they say there? Don't trust a skinny cook. Well, don't trust a mountain realtor in high heels. That's my saying. There you go. But yeah, we're going to talk a lot about mountain real estate and what to expect. And we're going to go ahead and get started here. So thank you for joining us. So let's do some introductions. I'm going to let my co-host here, Audra, go ahead and get started.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, Jackie. So, my name is Audra Iori, and I am somewhat new to Colorado. My husband and I have been out here just over 4 years now. We have been coming out here for over 20, and finally in 2020, we decided it was time to leave the Midwest and go follow our dreams. So we are here and we are loving it.
Well, we are happy to have you here. I know you've just slid right into a Colorado mountain living piece of
Oh,
cake,
yeah.
right? It's like you're supposed to be here for a long time.
Right.
So I have been here a little bit longer. I moved to Colorado in 2007. I have lived in both Evergreen and Conifer up here in the mountains, and I also spent a good amount of time up in Summit County. So got a lot of experience just kind of getting immersed in the community here, building relationships, and also owning a couple homes over that time. And not only that, I've helped over 300 people buy and sell real estate up here in the foothills. So I have a lot of experience in helping folks buy and sell homes and land up in the mountains. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'm glad you're here. And we're going to dive into what it's like to live in the mountains and what you should expect when you're moving from perhaps the city to the mountains, or even if you're already here and now it's time to buy a house, what to expect. So, there's a lot of folks that are moving up here to the mountains and, for good reason. It's a great place to live, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Some strategies to avoid pitfalls, right? So we want to make sure that when you're moving to the mountains, you're getting the right house on the right property with the right loan and all taken care of. So you're really happy with your new move. We're going to talk a little bit about just mountain living. It's a little bit different than living in the suburbs or in Denver. And even if you're just kind of used to living in country setting, maybe you're coming from Kansas or Iowa or somewhere out of state, living in the mountains is a little bit different. Some things we're going to talk about also are just, hidden costs that you might just not be aware of when it comes to living in the mountains. Want to make sure you're prepared. And then how to just go ahead and establish your friendships and your community, especially if you're on a little bit bigger lot and it feels like you're, a little separate from your neighbors. We want you to feel like that you can go ahead and get rooted where you're living. And then we'll talk about what to do if that's really something that sounds interesting to you. So, Colorado, we've got a lot of great places to live. Many folks live on the plains, but of course we have the mountains, and I'm sure that's why many of you guys have moved out here. It's certainly the case for me. Moved out here in 2007. Really enjoy living in the foothills. And like I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time in Summit County too. So along the I-25 corridor, we have a lot of great foothills communities. Audra and I both live in the Morrison foothills area, also Conifer, Evergreen, Bailey, Indian Hills, those whole areas we help folks buy and sell real estate. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well as living in the high country. So we have 7 pitfalls we're going to talk about today. Make sure you're making the right decision when it's time to go ahead and buy a house. And the first thing that's really important is in real estate, location, 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 right? So when you're buying a house, you really have to think about what is your lifestyle and what do you want to be doing and where do you want to live? So when you're looking at the location of where you want to be, you got to think about, do you want to be really remote, have a big lot, not see any of your neighbors, or do you want to be a little closer in so that you can, have some elbow room, but get to know folks that are in your community? And then also think about what your lifestyle is going to be, because living in the mountains really is a lifestyle choice. So are you looking for easier access to hiking trails and mountain biking, or do you want to be in the high country like Summit County where you can be skiing every weekend and have access to a little bit cooler temperatures in the summertime? Those are the things you have to think about as to how you want to live in the mountains. So foothills versus resort living can be a little bit different. Foothills, you have more of a community. These are more long-term residents and folks that are going to be part of where you live. Where if you are in Summit County, a small percentage of the homeowners up there actually live there full time. And the rest really are folks that have second homes or they're using it as an opportunity to get away over the weekend. And so you just may not have as much of that grounding in your community. So things you have to think about there too. And then, of course, proximity to services. How close are you to a hospital or a grocery store and running errands? When we live up in the mountains, we use a term, Audra, you know this, called down the hill, right? So if you're going
Right.
to go run errands, it's like, hey, I'm going down the hill. So I'm going to hit Costco and Target and, Home Goods and run all my errands together. But there's also stuff that you can pop into King Soopers or Safeway in a matter of minutes, right? But it's just a little bit of a lifestyle switch as far as conveniences and what does that look like. And then, of course, cell signal and internet reliability. Now, the good news is, since I moved here, close to 20 years ago, those have both gotten a lot better. So cell signal with a lot more towers up here has really improved. So that's really not as much of a concern as it was years ago. And then internet reliability, we have a lot of different options. When I first moved here, everybody was on CenturyLink. Now we have the over-the-air stuff. So Netio, Rise, Mountain Broadband, even Starlink give you options to be able to have really reliable internet, whether you're streaming or working from home. So that's not a problem at all. And
And Jackie, let me just chime in real quick. So
yeah,
my first month's experience here, we had no internet. It took CenturyLink just a little bit to kind of get things hooked up. So I started out working from the library down in Bailey, and now we have Starlink, and I have no issues whatsoever. And I work pretty much 100% remotely. So there are definitely options.
oh, absolutely. And especially even after, early COVID when kids were
Sure.
at home working and doing schoolwork and parents were at home, that really made, the infrastructure have to be improved. So yes, it is something that is absolutely doable. When we talk about foothills living, just for some context, for Audra and I, that's really kind of encompassing the conifer and evergreen area and some of the surrounding communities, right? And so if you live down in Denver right now, some of the places you might be familiar with is, ice skating on the lake in Evergreen or walking through the shops or even hiking in Staunton State Park in Conifer. I mean, we have so many Jeffco open space parks, lots of opportunity for you to get out and recreate. It really becomes just part of your everyday living. It's not uncommon, honestly, just to go for a mountain bike ride and then for me to run out and show some houses. So it really is so accessible that it becomes part of your everyday life. With all the Jeffco open space parks, there's again miles and miles of trails and accessible outdoor things that you can do. Now, snowshoeing, I will tell you, being in lower elevation, we don't get as much snow. So that's a little bit, farther, fewer and farther in between as far as the days where that's available. But lots of mountain biking, camping, there's world-class fly fishing on the Platte River. And then, of course, Red Rocks is very close by. So you can get a concert and be home very quickly afterwards. And even living in the foothills, it gives you a little bit easier access to Denver. So if you want to go to a Rockies game or see the Nuggets or go to a concert, depending where you are, maybe a half hour, 45-minute drive to get downtown. It really is pretty easy. So it still gives you the ability to have all those big city amenities while having the mountain lifestyle where you live. Now in Summit County, that's going to be a little bit farther from Denver, right? So that's going to be heading west into the high country is what we call it. So that's where all the resorts are. So think Breck, Frisco, A-Basin, Keystone, Copper, all the places that people go to really recreate all summer, or I'm sorry, all winter, but summer is beautiful too, whether you're going to Lake Dillon to watch a concert, or golfing. There's so many things to do, and the food is quite delicious up there. There's really a good restaurant scene. Now I'll give you guys a pro tip. So one of the things I noticed is that if you have a favorite artist, they may go to Lake Dillon to the amphitheater and then go to Red Rocks So if you're flexible, you can actually get the tickets much cheaper at Lake Dillon. I think the views are
Yes.
pretty and the venue's smaller. So something to think about. But again, there's so much activities that you can do just minutes away up in Summit County. So if that's something you think you want to do all the time, maybe living up there full time is something that you might want to pursue, or get a second home up there, get a condo and have something that you can short-term rent to pay for, the expenses, the mortgage payment, the HOA dues, so that you can use it, but also have an investment property. And then, of course, avoid I-70 traffic. So that's a really nice benefit of having that. So pitfall number 2 is overlooking mountain-specific home features. So, houses down in the suburbs that are a little more cookie cutter, they have their own flavor, but in the mountains, we have to think about what it's like with, the seasons and snow buildup, right? So one of the key features is looking for a south-facing driveway. So the sun is going to be much more intense. It's going to melt a lot quicker, make your life a little easier in the winter. You also want to make sure that you have really good insulation in your house and an efficient heating system. So some of these homes were built in the late 70s or early 80s, and they may just be on electric baseboard heat. And it's not uncommon for us to also see multiple types of heating systems. You might have baseboard heat plus a wood burning stove or a pellet stove, just to kind of help keep utility costs down. And while electric baseboard heat isn't the most affordable, what's kind of nice about that is with the prevalence of solar, that's something where you can help keep your heat bills down. The other thing to think about too is that well and septic are quite common up here in the mountains. So there are a few communities that have public water and sewer, although the majority of homes are going to have a well, which is going to be for your own usage in the house, and then a septic system, which takes care of all the waste. And so you have to make sure that you're really maintaining those, because that's your water and sewer source. And so part of buying a house is making sure those things are inspected, so that you know that they're working properly, you have reliable water source, and the septic system is operating the way it should, because those things can be kind of pricey if you have a problem. So part of a really smart home inspection is to have that reviewed by an inspector to make sure that it's all working properly. And then also too, having a generator is not a bad idea. That's just kind of mountain living. Now, of course, since I bought a generator, we have never lost power, but I don't know if you've had to use one, Audra. Have you had one go
Well,
over at your house?
so ironically, we had purchased one from the homeowner when we bought this house in Bailey, and we tested it and it worked. And the couple times that we needed it, it did not work. So word of caution, if you have a generator and you're not utilizing it, get it checked annually to make sure it is operating when you actually need it.
Oh, that's smart. Well, and quite honestly, I think the only times I've had to use it is in the summer if we had like a lightning strike nearby and the power went out. So, but not a bad idea to have. It's just, for backup purposes. So, all right. So pitfall number 3, something that's really important to understand up here is having road access and snow removal, understanding what that's like. So down in the city, the city services are going to be available when it comes to snow removal and maintenance of the roads. And we have the same up here, but we also have what's called private drives. So sometimes, we have county maintained roads, but then there's going to be a smaller private offshoot to a handful of houses. And so that is actually something that is the homeowner's responsibilities that live off of that private road. So it's really important to understand, who's doing the snow removal. If you guys have a dirt road and you choose to pave it down the road, how much is that going to cost and how is that split among the homeowners? Also, is it somebody that is down at the end of the road that everybody buys a case of beer for at the end of the season, and that's just how it's arranged, and he gets up early to go to work and he's happy to do it? Or is there a road maintenance agreement? And that's really the best case scenario, because now you have a document that's living and recorded for all those houses on that road that will outline, how you share all the expenses, and there's no, confusion as to what that looks like for all the homeowners. Now, the other thing to think about too is HOAs. So I know sometimes people aren't real fans of HOAs, and I get it. But up in the mountains here, sometimes we do have HOAs, although they tend to be a little bit more low impact. But sometimes they will be helpful in coordinating the snow removal or the road maintenance for a smaller area. Now, the other thing to consider too is that many homes will have no HOA, but they will have what's called covenants. So covenants are rules that go with the property. And so for instance, something might be like you can't have chickens, or you can only have one extra garage, if you wanted to build another structure on your property. And so these are things where you have to read that, because if you had your heart set on having chickens, which at the price of eggs today, I don't blame people,
Not a
but
bad idea.
if, right? But if that was, you had your heart set on having chickens, you may not be able to do that in that neighborhood. So something to learn about. Also with access is, you have to understand, what does the driveway look like, right? It might be look like a piece of cake in the summertime, but in the winter might be kind of north facing where there's a lot more ice, and you're going to have areas where the snow melt is going to freeze overnight. You want to make sure you can get in and out pretty easily. And of course, I would highly recommend, if you're going to live in the mountains, to have at least all-wheel drive vehicle. It's just so much easier to get around on those days that we do have snow. So we did touch a little bit earlier on wells and septics, so I wanted to dive a little bit more into that. So many of the homes up here have wells, and with that, when you purchase a home, I highly recommend that you have the well tested. And this would be done by someone that specifically specializes in wells. So home inspectors are great, but they know a little about a lot of different systems on the house, but they're not necessarily a roofer or a plumber or an electrician.
Mhm.
And specifically when it comes to well, you want someone that knows what they're doing. And this person is going to come in and they're going to test the flow rate of the well to make sure that it's producing enough water, the recovery rate, which means that it's going to fill back up after you draw down on the well, and also get some water quality samples and send those out to a lab. And that's where you'll know the potability of your well. And every once in a while, there's some bacteria in it, and no problem. That's something that can be, cleaned out, but something you need to know before you buy the house. Also, there's different water restrictions too. So the most common you'll hear about are household wells and then domestic wells. So household means that you can use the water inside the house for, showering and cooking and washing dishes, things like that. And then domestic wells mean that you can use it for inside, but also outside. So if you plan on having chickens or horses or anything else, or maybe gardening, you can use it both inside and outside. So those are really important questions to ask when it comes to buying a house. Now with the septic systems, what those do, and if you don't understand the engineering of it, is you've got your waste that comes out the house, and then there's a tank, and the solids will stay in the tank, and then the liquids will leach out through a series of pipes, and we call that a leach field. And so those have to be pumped about every other year, just to make sure that you're not getting to the top of that tank. And that's really your expense when it comes to maintenance. However, part of purchasing a home in the mountains is that the septic system has to be pumped and inspected before the home sells. So that you know as a buyer that the system is working properly and you're not going to get caught with any surprises, because it could be a pretty costly repair if there's an issue. And so again, I can't state or overstate, the importance of maintaining your septic system, because if you don't pump it regularly, you can have a really dramatic surprise. So
Yes.
that. So pitfall number 5, let's talk a little bit about the true cost of mountain living. Audrey, you want to touch base on some of these things here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when it comes to, and we're going to kind of get in a little bit about budgeting and budgeting specifically for mountain specific expenses. So we all know that we're going to have home maintenance and repairs just as a homeowner, but there's some additional things that I recommend, and I think Jackie would as well, when it comes to saving for that. So some of the repairs, when it does come to like well and septic, those can be rather costly. And I recommend that you just build that into your budget. So know that it's probably going to come at some point. So we want to make sure that that you take care of things like that. When it comes to options for financing in mountain homes, renovation financing is actually a wonderful solution, or something to consider, especially if you are looking at homes that maybe just need a little bit of TLC. Maybe they just need a facelift, right? They're a little bit outdated. Having the option to roll in the cost of those renovations and repairs can save you a lot of money down the road. So again, with a renovation loan, you're going in knowing what's going to be fixed. You're going to know what that's going to cost you a month, and you're not going to get in the house, then start making these repairs and either drain your savings or rack up high interest credit cards. So that's something that when it comes time to, when you're out and you're looking and, maybe you can't afford that house that is, move-in ready to your taste, there are options that we can look into with regard to, the renovation loans. Two things that I would like to point out with those, though, if it is something that you're interested in or you find yourself leaning towards, hiring an insured and bonded contractor should be your top priority, because with these properties, these loans, you cannot do any of the work yourself. Okay, so having that insured and bonded contractor chosen up front is going to be a key factor. And the other thing to consider is your time from contract to closing can also be extended. So, typically you go under contract, we're closing you within 30 days, right? With the renovation loan, because of those additional moving parts, we always ask for 60 days on the contract, just really to set expectations for all parties that it might take that long. And one of the other things that actually Jackie and I were talking about the other day, and she's going to be your go-to in terms of, is there multiple offers on this property? Is going in with a renovation loan offer going to hinder the seller accepting my offer? If it is in safe and sound condition and you can live with the, whatever the decor, we'll say, you could still go in, close within 30 days with just a regular conventional loan, and maybe sit on the property for a few months and really get an idea of, what are my wish list items? What would I really love to get done, and what am I okay living with? And we can always do a renovation loan down the road. Okay. And what's nice about these is that we're not looking at the current value of the property. We are looking at the after improve value based on what the contractor bid stating and the repairs that you're making.
All great points. One thing I want to mention, Audra, too, is that, when you're buying a house in the mountains, everybody's got their list of all the things that they're really looking for a mountain home, right?
Sure.
And whether you're buying it, honestly, the city or the mountains, I always coach my clients that we're shooting for 80% of those items are, we're checking the boxes.
Sure.
10% you can live with and 10% you can fix, right? Because the things you can live with, you can't change, right? So, and especially in the mountains, the things that you can't change could be the size of the lot, the terrain, the views. Do you back up to national forest? If you get some great property and maybe it just is kind of dated and you want to make some changes, that's okay, because Audra's got some great loan options that will allow you to go ahead and improve the home, and you can make all those cosmetic changes, but you can't change how big the lot is or what the views are like or the location, right? So that's why it's even more important to have that option available for you.
Right. And I didn't touch on, you had on there the like energy efficient options. So like things like that you could roll in would be new windows. Maybe you want the roof has a little bit of life left in it. It was enough to pass a home inspection and appraisal, but maybe you want to switch to a metal roof. So there's the option from necessity to luxury. They're all there, and they're all things that we can talk about. So moving on, this is a biggie. I've been in the industry for 23 years, and I've seen people who are super excited about, venturing into buying a home, and they just have a terrible experience. And it usually starts with they're assuming that they're qualified before while they're looking at homes, right? And we don't want to do that. Our job is to ask the right questions for you guys, make sure that you are solidly pre-approved before you go out and you spend time looking at homes, you fall in love with something, you go under contract, now you've given earnest money deposit, maybe you've paid for a home inspection, and you know what, your lender didn't do what they were supposed to do, and all of a sudden the deal falls through. So we are not going to let that happen. So getting into just like what a full pre-approval is versus a pre-qualification, and some of this may be very familiar to you guys, so I won't spend too much time on it, but basically a pre-qualification means I've asked you a few questions, you've completed your application, I've checked credit, and I'm just assuming that everything that you put on that application is accurate, and I issue you a pre-qualification letter, okay? I'm not gonna do that. I don't think it's worth the paper that it's written on. We're gonna dig a little bit deeper, and I'm going to verify your income. We're going to verify your source of funds for the home purchase, which kind of gets us into the next bullet point, which is how much am I going to need to put down? That's a big, big piece of your pre-approval. So we need to find out, do you have a home to sell, and do you need to sell that home to use the net proceeds to put down on the home purchase? Or can you qualify with both homes for a while until you sell your current home? Or do we maybe need to look at what's called bridge financing, where we take the contingency off your offer, meaning you don't have to sell your home to close on the new one, and we provide the financing in between. We kind of bridge that gap for you, and then that allows you anywhere between 6 and 12 months after you close on your home purchase to sell your current home. So if that's something that, that is going to come into play, we do have solutions for that. What I would recommend that you count on in terms of a minimum down payment would be 3 to 5% of the purchase price. There are programs that allow for 0% down. A lot along the 285 corridor would qualify for what's called a USDA loan. They do have income limits though, so we would tread carefully before we went down that path. But if you're active military or you're a veteran, you probably have a VA benefit that's going to allow you to get in for 0% down, right? And one of the things that we actually offer at guaranteed rate to all of our veterans is we waive our lender fees. So you're going to save additional money as well as not having to put any money down. Other things to kind of consider is if you don't have the savings, right? You don't have quite enough that you'd like to put down and still keep some money in the bank after you move in. There are national and state down payment assistance programs. So if there's an assistance program out there, we have access to it. And as part of the pre-approval process, I'm always going to check to see if you're eligible for down payment assistance. And if you are, we're going to let you know. But then we're also going to discuss some of the pros and cons that go along with that, because some of those you do have to pay back when you sell or you refinance. So we can go through all of that. But the main thing is know your options and make sure that you ask questions right from the get-go. And one of the things that I actually recommend, and this may sound silly and may sound old school, but I've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, thank you for this little tip. When you're entering into this process, put a little notepad on your nightstand next to your bed, because I guarantee you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and you're going to go, oh my God, I have 12 questions for Audra or whoever it is that you're working with. And we'd prefer that you don't call at 3 o'clock in the morning, but if you jot down all those notes and those questions, you can go back to sleep, get a good night's rest, and then we can address things for you in the morning.
All such good points.
Yeah.
And of course, budgeting for what that payment looks like too is important. Audra, walk us through this chart here where you've kind of
absolutely
what that looks like.
So again, back to the whole pre-approval, kind of our initial call. There's what you can afford on paper, meaning we as a lender are going to let you know that you can finance X amount, and what you can afford to maintain your desired lifestyle. And that's really the area that I like to focus on, because you know where you like to spend your money. Maybe you like to go out to dinner all the time. Maybe you're an avid skier. Obviously those fees can add up. Maybe you like to go to the salon and get your nails done twice a month, whatever the case is. You know what your lifestyle is. So one of the first questions that I will ask is, how much do you think you're comfortable paying a month for your mortgage payment? And that's where we're going to start. So in this example, we just took net, like, what is your net income, meaning after taxes? Let's just assume in this example, it's $10,000. Okay, you've told me that, you know what, we've talked it over. I think 4,000 a month is what we're good for a mortgage payment. So then I'm going to ask you, what are some other fixed payments, things that you have every single month? Maybe you have a $600 car payment. Maybe you charge regularly every single month around $1,800 for groceries, cell phone, gas, TV subscriptions, that sort of thing. You're lucky enough that you've paid off all your student loans. So we've got a zero in there. And then maybe you have other fixed expenses, child support, maybe monthly maintenance, daycare, that sort of thing. So my question to you is going to be, okay, we're netting about $2,600 after all this. Are you comfortable that that's going to be enough to cover your utilities and other expenses, your home repairs, travel, leisure, other things that you like to do? Okay. And if you do, that's the number that I'm going to try to get you pre-approved for. What I will do is let you know, if you have any flexibility above that price point. So if you're not finding what you want at that price point, you can go up X amount. And just to give you an example, just based on current market interest rates and things, estimated taxes like in the Jeffco, Park County areas, and estimated homeowners insurance, at a $4,000 a month payment, you can anticipate a pre-approval for a loan amount of about $550 to $575. Okay, so your down payment would be on top of that. Okay, if let's say that bottom number, that $2,600 of that, we'll call it, it's not fun money because you still need to pay your utilities, but let's say you only need $2,000 a month. Okay, if we upped your housing payment by just $600, and we're looking at $4,600 versus $4,000, that's going to increase your buying power by $100,000. Okay, so we're gonna have those conversations and make sure that we're structuring things. We're not going to max you out. We want to make sure that you're going to be comfortable with the decisions that you're making and that payment that you're going to have to make every month.
That's so important. And if you're going to live up here in the mountains, you want to have fun, right? So whether
you want to have fun, for sure.
You're going to have a mountain bike, or you're going to have skis, or you're going to want to take that weekend trip up to Crested Butte or whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to still have fun so that you can enjoy living up here too. So all good things, Audra. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you do want to really work with lenders that specialize in mountain properties. And that's pitfall number 6 I want to kind of touch base on. I know Audra's going to mention a few things here too, but when you submit an offer on a home and you work to get your pre-approval for your mortgage, a lot of folks will reach out to, the big box banks where they have their checking and savings, maybe a car loan. And those are great for those transactional type of accounts. But when you're working on getting a mortgage for a home purchase, which is a pretty big deal, you want to work with someone that's really dedicated to walking you through that process and is going to answer the phone when you have phone calls. Some of these other online options or these big, box banks, you're just kind of a file number in a call center. And so it's important to have someone that's going to answer the phone, is going to be dedicated to your success, and also understands the community where you're looking to buy. On top of that, I know from my standpoint, when I'm submitting an offer for a client, it's really important to have that pre-approval letter, but also, the name and the reputation of the realtor and the lender is a pretty big deal. So I've seen situations where a buyer is submitting an offer on a home and it's one of these, online quick down and dirty, get your pre-approval lenders. And the seller and their realtor will really be hesitant to accept that offer with that lender because they're afraid there's going to be a lot of hiccups throughout the process. But when you have someone that is a dedicated mortgage broker that's working on your behalf, they know there's someone with history that knows the area and is really going to be dedicated to your success as a buyer. And, when it comes to buying a mountain home too, you're going to have your home inspection, but there's also going to be an appraisal. And that's when a third party is hired to come and take a look at the house and make sure that you're not overpaying for it, because the bank doesn't want to loan you more than what the house is worth, right? And so it's important to make sure that you're working with a lender that has, appraisers that work in that area and understand mountain properties, because they're not cookie cutter like down in town or down the hill, as we call it. Because, those houses, there might be, say, 3 floor plans in a big, neighborhood, and it's just a matter of, what the front door color is like, and that's the difference, right? I know I'm simplifying it, but in mountains, there's things that you have to consider when it comes to views, access, lot size, layouts, number of beds and bathrooms, and all the other things that make a home valuable. And you got to make sure that you've got the right, appraiser in place. And, like Audra was talking about earlier, those loan programs that will allow you to make some of those cosmetic changes. So you get that beautiful house with $1 million view, but maybe you don't like the kitchen, or you want to add on to the garage. Those are things you can change, and she's got the lending options that will help you walk through those. So the last thing we want to talk about is pitfall number 7, and that's assuming you'll be lonely in a rural area. And I can tell you that shouldn't be the case. And there's so many reasons why you can be grounded and have a sense of community living in the mountains. Even if you're not on top of your neighbors, there's so many great people that live up here, and they're open to friendships and having experiences together with all of you. So, getting involved locally is great. As a matter of fact, Audra and I met through the Mountain Women in Business group. And we've
Yes.
got close to, gosh, I think 150 members now.
Mhm.
And there's regular meetings. We had a coffee networking event at a new bakery that was opening up in Evergreen yesterday. So there's a lot of opportunities to get involved locally, whether you're volunteering or joining a community group. There's the Conifer Area Council that meets about every other month that talks about community happenings. So there's a lot of areas that you can get involved, whether you join the fire department or you volunteer for the Rotary, or even within the school system. There's so many ways that you can make friends through volunteering and getting involved. As far as outdoor activities are concerned, you can meet so many people up here with regular, hiking groups or biking meetups. I know when my kids were very little, I was part of a Mountain Mamas hiking group. And so there'd be 10 or 12 of us deep on the trail, pushing bob strollers and wearing backpacks with our kids in them. And I'm still friends with many of those people today. So, there's a lot of opportunity for you to do those activities that you enjoy and getting out. Audra, why don't you touch base about what that's been like for you to be in the mountains? Because I've been
Yeah,
here much longer than you,
yeah,
but your
yes,
experience of getting
yeah.
rooted is more recent.
Right, right. So when we moved out here, we had a couple people that we knew because, like I said, we had been traveling out here for for about 20 years before we actually made the move out here, and we were here maybe a month and just kind of getting settled in. And I'll never forget, my husband Steve and I were out to dinner, and we were sitting at the bar, and I was just talking about, I think it's time that I've really got to branch out, not just from a work, like from a working standpoint, but just from a social standpoint. I need to go out. I need to put myself out there. I want to make friends. Everybody's been so friendly that I just pass by, like in the supermarket or whatever the case is. I don't know where to start. And this young, beautiful woman named Katie walked up behind me and tapped me on my shoulder and said, I swear I wasn't eavesdropping, but I hear you, and I have an organization for you that I would just love for you to go check out. And it just so happened to be Mountain Women in Business. And from there, it's expanded to friendships that I made through there. I'm part of local bunco groups. I got involved in the Conifer Chamber, super welcoming organization, by the way. And then just started checking some things like social groups on social media. There's hiking groups, there's networking groups. There's so many. I have found so many talented people out here with, they have different talents, different interests. I've gotten interested in things I never thought that I would before. So it's really just a matter of putting yourself out there, and you would be so surprised how many people are in your same situation and welcome the opportunity to just take a deep breath and go, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me. So it's out there, get involved. And the other thing, I just wanted to, I just thought of this now, but it is, I mean, it is something that I want you to think about. If you're working with a local realtor and or a local lender, we live in the community. So just because we've closed down your home doesn't mean that things have to end right there. We're here to help introduce you to other people, right? We're probably going to get to know you throughout the process. It's going to be a month, 2 months, sometimes longer than that. We're going to kind of have an idea of, what interests you. And we're here to help you after closing as well, not just to get you to the closing table.
That is such a great point, Audra, because it's not uncommon for me to say, hey, I know you have dogs. Let me
Right?
introduce you to my vet. Or I know there's another family that I've helped purchase in your neighborhood that has young kids. I want to make an introduction because I think you guys can do some play dates.
Sure.
Or there's another family that has older teens in the neighborhood. They'll make a great babysitter for you. And the people here really are so friendly. It was funny. My mother was visiting years ago and we were checking out the grocery store and we were walking out and she said, do you know this lady? And I said, no. And she's like, gosh, she was awful chatty with you, wasn't she? I was like, just the way it is. And when you're driving through the neighborhood, people are always just waving when they see people on the, I mean, people are just so friendly. So you get to have a real sense of community. Now, of course, if you just want to be left alone, that's fine too. A lot of people are fine with a little bit more privacy, but
Sure.
you'll never be lonely if you put yourself out there. There's so many events that happen, whether it's, the fire department chili cook-off in September or the conifer elevation celebration that happens every summer with music and all sorts of festivals that are happening. There's a lot going on. So opportunities for you to be around people, meet people that have similar interests. So don't
For
ever feel
sure.
like you're going to be lonely, right? So we've covered a lot today, and I hope that's all been helpful for you guys. And we are also happy to, use the chat if you have questions or take yourself off mute. We're happy to chat with you a little bit too. But also, we are also welcoming the opportunity to talk to you one-on-one because you're probably going to have your own questions and the things that you're going to want to cover that pertain to you. So feel free to, use our phone numbers here and reach out. We're always happy to have one-on-one conversations, whether it's about lending or buying a house, or maybe even you've thought about building. I've gone through that myself. And so I'm happy to talk to you about that as well. But we are, just a wealth of information having been up here and been in this business for a long time. So I'm happy to hang out here for a moment. If anybody wants to utilize the chat or, take a picture of our info here. And then also we did promise anybody that attended today, we've got some great information for you. So Audra's got a first-time home buyer's guide and some other information as it relates to lending. And then we do have our mountain home buying guide. So if you grab your phones and want to scan those QR codes, you can go ahead and download those documents and there'll be a resource for you. Although, like we said, always happy to chat. We both love real estate and helping our clients and helping them live the lifestyle that we're lucky enough to have ourselves. So again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to, jump in. Audra, did you have anything else you wanted to add and make sure that we cover today?
You know what? Just to kind of summarize, I think it's so very, very important that, when you are entering into purchasing a home, it's something that we deal with every single day, right? Jackie and I, this is what we do. But we understand that you don't. And it's just whoever you decide to work with, just make sure that you're comfortable with those people, because you're gonna spend a lot of time with them, and you just want to make sure that that they're going to have your back throughout the process, right? They're there for you. Your needs, your priorities, your goals should always be front and center. And that's something that I pride myself on, and I know Jackie does as well.
That is really so important. And, the other thing I'll mention too is that, no matter who you hire, and of course, would be delighted to work with anybody that wants
Sure.
to move up to the mountains, but it is important to hire someone that is a mountain specialist. I joked earlier that, I've got my t-shirts down on the mountains are calling. And while people say don't trust a skinny cook, don't trust a mountain realtor that wears heels, right? Because you want someone that really understands the area, because there's, the micro neighborhoods, and there's, the drive times and the schools. And not only that, but just understanding the mechanics of going through a mountain transaction. So whether it's, inspecting the well and septic and how to handle something if it pops up. How do you know if the property boundaries are correct? What does it mean if you have an easement? What are all the different mountain specific components of owning a home you need to have so that you can enjoy it and enjoy your lifestyle of living in the mountains? And so you really need to work with a mountain realtor that not only understands the process, but has the connections too, because if something comes up, and there's always a little surprise here and there, that person know how to handle it quickly and have the right connections locally to get the job done. Because within our community here, there's people that live and work up here too. And we know sometimes that, you can get things done a lot quicker if you have the local expertise. So, that's just something I would all encourage you all to do, is if you are considering buying in the mountains, make sure you're absolutely working with a mountain realtor. So I know I like to stay in my lane, so I love working in the mountains. I do help folks all throughout Denver. And although, I've got clients that live up here, they refer me to their, kids or their family members in Denver, or I have folks that live in Denver and I sell their house in Littleton or Highlands Ranch, and then I help them buy up here. So while we're certainly mountain experts, we can help you throughout Denver. And, for us, we'd be happy to have you up here if that's a move that you're looking to make. So
Absolutely.
again, if you are interested in chatting with us, we're happy to do that. I'm also going to pop in the chat just a link to my Calendly. So if you'd like to book, a half an hour, we can just kind of walk through what does a home run, purchase look for you, like for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have, because we've covered a lot here, but of course, you'll have something that'll come to mind. So feel free to do that. And then also, we've got Audra who's available here to chat with you and myself. So feel free to reach out, and then we'll just go ahead and send those documents out at the end too. So those
Sure.
mountain buying guides, so you guys have those. So, but we appreciate you joining. Thank you for
Yes,
coming up.
definitely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Enjoy this fall, spring. I think we got snow coming next week.
Yes,
So
warm weather coming up.
I know. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great evening.